So, this is how I learned to make sense of things after some pretty rough financial years. I am going to try and lay out my experiences as clearly as possible. I want to talk about what I am doing this year, things I wish I knew when I was first starting out, especially in my early 20s. It is 4 very simple steps. I'm going to list it as clearly as I can, and let us just dive right in. Number 1. I know some of these will sound cliche, but bear with me. Trust me, I think it is important. No distractions, full focus. What I mean by that is I still struggle with this to this day, for example. Cutting your screen time, or just being pickier with time, or setting firm deadlines for yourself, or just, I do not know, having a journal, being able to physically write things off your to-do list. These are very important full focus items. You do not want to be split doing 10 different businesses or 10 different things on a given day. You are just going to overwhelm yourself and almost confuse your mind a little bit. For me, for example, cutting screen time, that is a real thing. At the minimum of what I am doing is telling myself, hey, if you are going to watch an hour of YouTube, you need to create an hour of YouTube. What I mean by that is create content. This is something I am huge on going into this year is, hey, I am all for consuming, but you need to be creating, you need to be an owner of something. You should be putting out stuff too, because everyone has their own story, right? That is just something I try to follow. Another thing I am doing is just not easily agreeing to things, not easily just saying yes, just to say yes to every little thing that comes up on my plate, right? I am being, this is going to sound a bit, not great, but I am not willing to give up a lot of my time if it is not going to serve my future self. Trust me, I will enjoy moments with friends, family, take a drink, take a vacation, whatever, but I just feel like the first quarter of the year, the first couple of months, is the absolute best time to get momentum, right? I will play devil's advocate here. Where I live, it is freezing, it is dark, it is way easier for me to get things done during these first few months. I get that. And if you are not in that state, then I understand, but just get the ball rolling for the first few months, right? That sets me up so much for the entire year mentally that I am by, April, sometimes even May, June, I am just kind of pushing with what is in front of me. So that is something that I would highly recommend to anyone listening, because it is going to only benefit yourself and you are only going to make things better from there, right? This was a big one for me, especially when I was younger. I was always chasing the next shiny object, the next big thing, and I never really focused on one specific area. I was spread too thin, and that meant I never really mastered anything. My early investments were a prime example. I would hear about a stock doing well, jump in without really understanding the company, and then panic sell at the first sign of trouble. If I had just focused on learning one type of investment thoroughly, like real estate or a specific industry, I would have avoided so many losses. The urge to diversify without understanding what you are diversifying into is a huge trap. It is not about having many things. It is about having a few well understood things. This lack of focus also meant I was easily swayed by online gurus promising quick riches. I bought into so many schemes that, looking back, were obviously too good to be true. If I had just put my energy into building a skill or a small business, I would have had a much more solid foundation. The biggest lesson here for me was that true wealth is built through focused effort and deep understanding. Not through chasing every fleeting trend. It is about being deliberate with your time and energy, recognizing that every yes to something less important is a no to something more important. It is about understanding that your attention is your most valuable asset and you need to protect it fiercely. Number 2 is obviously another kind of cliche one. It is just start, right? You need to start with some type of goal list. Obviously, I think everyone has passed that point, but you need to furthermore reverse engineer it. What I mean is like map out what I call the inputs needed to achieve said goal. So it is easy to say, yeah, I want to make 100 grand a year in 2025, or I want to lose 50 pounds of fat and gain 5 pounds of muscle. It is like, that is all great, but that is what everyone does and what happens. 95% of people fail or give up by February, right? So what I mean by inputs is nothing happens if you do not have a daily or at the minimum weekly metric to follow, right? This goes back to my point of it is just math. So it is like, if I want to make 10 grand a month, work backwards. What skill can I sell for 10 grand a month worth of value? That could be paid ads, sales, design, software development, etc. Right. Now, who is this skill best sold to? Who can utilize it the most? Who's going to be begging me for my services? Who has a need for this? From there, it is like, okay, as soon as I have my ICP, just stands for ideal customer profile. How can I get their information? Do I have to use websites like ZoomInfo, Apollo ListKit, or can I get it from other sources like Google, whatever, right? Once I have their information, then it is literally just math. How many of those people do I have to call? On average, how many of those calls will pick up from there? How many pickups will turn into meetings or sales calls? How many of those sales calls will turn into closes? It is like literally it. And I am oversimplifying to a certain extent, but you need to work backwards, not only mentally, right? Once you are able to just dumb things down to small bite-sized pieces, it subconsciously becomes easier to hit. But you also have something to actually aim towards on a way smaller basis that leads up to this huge pie, right? So just think of that, your daily inputs needed to get to this set point. My question to you right now, either pause the video or just keep listening to the background. What is your one goal? Right? I do not care if you have multiple, you can list multiple if you want, but I want one goal that you must achieve this year, not if. not maybe, not whatever, something that you must do that is like, it is like crazy if you do not hit it by the 31st of December 2025. Comment below. I am genuinely curious in hearing that my early investing days were all about abstract goals. I want to be rich, I want to make a lot of money, but I had no idea what that actually meant or how to get there. I would just throw money at whatever seemed popular at the time. Bitcoin, meme stocks, even some shady real estate deals I heard about through friends of friends. I had no system, no strategy, just hope. And hope, as I learned, is not an investment strategy. This idea of reverse engineering your goals, breaking them down into daily or weekly actions, completely changed my financial life. It is not about the grand vision, it is about the consistent small steps you take every day. For example, when I realized I needed to stop bleeding money and start saving, my initial goal was simply to save $1,000. But that felt huge. So I broke it down. How much do I need to save each week? Where can I cut back? It became a game of small wins. Packing lunch instead of buying it, canceling subscriptions I barely used, selling things I no longer needed. Each small action felt achievable, and collectively they built momentum. This process took away the overwhelm and replaced it with a sense of control. It is like trying to climb a mountain. You do not just stare at the peak, you focus on the next foothold, the next step. My biggest regret from my early 20s was not applying this to my investments. Instead of saying I want to make $1 million, I should have been saying, what is one profitable skill I can learn and sell? How many clients do I need to reach out to each week? How many sales calls do I need to make to close one deal that tangible step by? Step approach is what actually works, not just wishing for a different outcome. Step number 3, you need to get better, right? Always remember that the absolute best investment you are ever going to make will be yourself, right? You need to be able to treat yourself as a sponge or a vessel, throw as many books, interviews, coaches, etc. at yourself to just level up your skills. This is one of those rare moments that I kind of go against the grain and everyone else is thinking of like, do not compare yourself. The comparison is thief of joy. I do agree with that in most cases, but in one case that I do not is people that are ahead of you. I always look at my competitors. I am studying my competitors every day. I am looking at people in my industry. Excuse me. I am so darn stuffy looking at people in my industry and comparing myself to them to be like, this is interesting. This is a healthy thing because it is like if I am at 50 grand a month, but I see someone with a way, higher skill business, but relatively similar vertical doing 500 grand a month, I can either sit there and complain and be like, well, must be a scammer, must be, doing something wrong because I am just the best. Or I can sit there, put my thinking cap on and be like, okay, this guy clearly knows something I do not. What is he doing that I am not? What can I replicate from my side to be how he is? Maybe not straight up copying or stealing, but I can mirror, right? So the point is just be coachable. Constantly search up boring but key insights to whatever it is the heck that you are working on, right? And I do not care if it is old interviews. Like, funnily enough, the videos with less views typically means there are some gold nuggets in there because people think it is boring, hence it has less views. And it's like I used to do this with watching old Fortune 500 exec interviews. It is just crazy, like private equity ones or early Bezos interviews or just all these different things, man. You need to understand, like, there is good content out there. Not everyone is out there to get you. Obviously, do not go buying the $3,000 course if it is someone who clearly does not have a good reputation. But someone who is long-standing, someone who is smart, that is someone you want to learn from. You could literally cut your learning curve in half if you just, are able to extract what is in someone else's brain, put it into yours, and then start getting that in motion, right? So make your money, stack your skills, but then realize it is like, okay, if I am at 10, there is a lot more money in this world, right? I can get to 20, 30, 40, 100 grand a month, like I am shooting for this year. Like, you need to be able to put those pillars in front of you and then be able to knock them down from there. In my early days, my idea of getting better was just trying harder. I thought if I just worked more hours, if I just kept trying different investment strategies, eventually something would stick. But I was just repeating the same mistakes with more intensity. I was not actually learning or evolving. I was too proud, too stubborn to admit I did not know what I was doing. I saw other people having success, and instead of asking what they were doing differently, I just assumed they were lucky or had an unfair advantage. That mindset kept me stuck for a long time. It was only after losing a significant chunk of my savings that I humbled myself and started actively seeking knowledge. I read books, listened to podcasts, and yes, even bought some reputable courses from people who genuinely knew their stuff. It was not about finding a magic bullet. It was about understanding the fundamental principles of finance, risk management, and market psychology. The comparison thing is tricky. For a long time, I avoided comparing myself to anyone because it just made me feel bad. But I realized there is a healthy way to do it. It is not about feeling inferior. It is about identifying what others are doing right and learning from it. If someone is achieving results you aspire to, they are doing something you are not. Instead of resenting them, study them, deconstruct their process. Not to copy blindly, but to extract principles you can apply to your own unique situation. This shift from resentment to curiosity was a game changer. It is about acknowledging that there is always more to learn, always room to improve, and that the smartest people are the ones who are constantly seeking new information and perspectives. Number 4, this is the hardest one. This has been very difficult for me. Stay consistent. You need to keep your foot on the gas. I do not care what anyone says. The person who does not stop, even when the road is rocky, is always going to outperform the person who does stop, right? By far. Think about it. Again, Bezos with Amazon. They were not profitable. I think for like minimum 5 to 10 years, if I remember correctly, maybe even more. People were calling him crazy. He had all this press on about him saying like, this dude is nuts. This dude just wasted a ton of investors' money. Yet in, silence and kind of public, he was building this huge moat of enterprise value and customer experience that he is now. Say what you will about him, he is impenetrable. He has built such a machine that will probably live on for hundreds and hundreds of years. I am not saying you have to build the next Amazon, but just stay consistent. Stay consistent for a full year, and I am mind boggled if you do not become a better person in whichever way you are trying to get to, right? I can almost guarantee that you are going to come out that side a better person, right? So always remember the only way, something I am really sticking with this year, and I heard this recently and I was like, damn, this is really good. So this is not for me. Just remember that the only way out is through. So like this business, everything, life, sales, whatever, it is not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. Most of the time it is actually probably not going to be. You can get to a point where you are de-stressing or you are having less stress, but it is never always going to be perfect. That is just physically impossible. There are always going to be fires to put out. There are always going to be stuff to work on, right? But just know that the quicker you realize that, the better, because then you know your worst case scenario. If you are willing to suffer through that, I think you can honestly suffer through anything. Consistency was my biggest nemesis in my early attempts at investing and managing money. I would get excited about a new strategy, dump some money into it, and then at the first sign of a downturn, I would bail, or I would start a strict budget. Stick to it for a week or two, and then fall back into old spending habits. The problem was I saw these as discrete events, not as part of a continuous journey. I thought success was about making the perfect decision once, rather than making imperfect decisions consistently over time. When the market dipped, I would panic and sell, locking in losses, only to watch the market recover later. If I had just held on, if I had just been consistent with my long-term strategy, those temporary dips would not have mattered as much. This is where my emotional trading really hurt me. Every fluctuation felt like a personal attack, and I lacked the discipline to just stay the course. Learning to ride out the inevitable ups and downs, to trust the process even when it felt uncomfortable, was a huge mental shift. It meant acknowledging that investing is not a sprint, it is a marathon. It also meant understanding that life, and especially financial life, is rarely a straight line. There will be setbacks, unexpected expenses, bad market cycles. The people who ultimately succeed are not the ones who avoid these challenges, but the ones who keep going despite them. It is about building resilience, about cultivating the mental toughness to stick with your plan, even when every instinct tells you to deviate. This lesson was hard-won, paid for with my own missteps and losses, but it is perhaps the most valuable one. Just keep showing up, keep doing the work, and trust that over time, the consistent effort will compound into meaningful results. To sum it up very quickly, no distractions, full focus, just start. Whatever the heck that is what you want to do. Start that job, ask for that raise, start in the gym, whatever, start the business, start creating content. Ideally, you do all of these and just turn yourself into a machine. Again, a vessel, right? Goes into number 3, get better, always learn. Number 4, stay consistent. So again, short but sweet video today, guys, as always. Actually, first as mentioned, please comment your main goal. I am seriously interested in that. And I want to hear what you are working on this year. I want to hear how you are going to, make yourself a better person. And as always, if you have made it this far, I want to see you win. Let us have a killer 2025 and keep pushing. Thank you.